What if I told you there's a single number that shows up at every major turning point in your financial life, and almost nobody is talking about it? Not a percentage, not a ratio, not some complicated formula from a finance textbook. Just one number, $8,000. And once you understand what it means at each stage of building wealth, the way you make every money decision will permanently change. Welcome back to Wealthy Worry. I want to be upfront with you. I'm not a financial genius. I'm someone who spent years doing things the hard way until I started paying attention to people who had already figured it out. And honestly, some of my early money decisions had the strategic depth of a raccoon opening a credit card. But the framework I'm about to walk you through changed how I think about earning, spending, saving, and investing. And it all circles back to this one number. So if you enjoy real money lessons without the fake guru Lamborghini speeches, hit the like button, subscribe to Wealthy Worry, and stay with me, because the further we go into this, the more powerful it gets. Let's start with the rule that most people need to hear first, and it has nothing to do with investing. It has to do with stopping the bleeding. Every financial expert you've ever heard tells you to build an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Sounds reasonable, right? But here's why that advice fails most people. The moment someone calculates what 3 to 6 months of their expenses actually is, they see a number so large that they give up entirely. The abstract goal becomes the enemy of actually starting. So instead of building any buffer at all, people build nothing and stay vulnerable. Here's what actually works. Stop thinking in months. Just get to $8,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account. That's it. That's the target. Why 8,000 specifically? Because below that number, you are quietly paying a tax on being broke that you cannot see on any bill or statement. Your car starts making a sound. You ignore it because you're tight on cash. And a $300 fix becomes a $2,000 repair 3 months later. Your tooth hurts, you skip the dentist, and what would have been a routine procedure becomes an emergency room visit, costing several $1,000s. You buy the cheapest tires, the cheapest appliances, the cheapest everything, and cheap things break faster, which means you spend more over time than someone who bought quality once. Every dollar below 8,000 is actively costing you money through the decisions it forces you to make. Every dollar above it is the beginning of actually building something. 8,000 is the foundation. You cannot build a house from the roof down. Now here is the rule that will make some of you genuinely uncomfortable, because it made me uncomfortable when I first heard it. Do not spend more than $8,000 on a car until your invested assets, not your salary, your actual invested portfolio, exceeds $100,000. Think about what a car actually is financially. The moment you drive a new vehicle off the lot, it loses roughly 20% of its value. Within 5 years, it has lost around 60%. You are financing the steepest part of that decline every single time you buy new. The difference between an $8,000 car and a $30,000 car is $22,000. If you invest that $22,000 instead, at historical market averages over 20 years, that single decision compounds into something north of $140,000. The car ends up worth nothing either way. The only question is what happened to the money in between. And before you say that cheap cars mean unreliable cars, the reliability data does not support that fear. A 5 to 8-year-old Honda, Toyota, or Mazda with under 100,000 miles has a strong statistical track record. Someone else already absorbed the depreciation hit. You get the machine, not the financial punishment that comes with buying it new. An $8,000 car is not a step backward. It is a financial weapon. Next rule. Invest a minimum of $8,000 per year. That is $667 per month. If that number feels large, consider this. The average new car payment in America right now exceeds $700 per month. The money exists in most households. It is just allocated to other things. Here is why $8,000 per year specifically is the floor and not just a suggestion. $8,000 invested annually for 25 years at historical stock market averages grows to nearly $600,000. You contribute $200,000 of your own money over that time. The market adds roughly $400,000 on top. And using the standard 4% withdrawal rule, that portfolio generates around $23,000 annually in retirement income. Combine that with Social Security, and most Americans can make that work. But drop your annual investment to $5,000, just a $250 monthly difference, and you end up with a portfolio that generates income below the poverty line. The gap between a retirement that functions and one that quietly collapses is $250 a month. That is a subscription audit. That is one dining out habit. The first $8,000 you invest each year is the difference between zero and something real. Everything after that is just the difference between something and more. Now we get to the rule that should terrify high earners, and it should. If your monthly spending exceeds $8,000, you need $24 million to retire. Read that again. $24 million. Because the math is simple once you apply it. Your annual spending would be $96,000. Multiply by 25, which is what the 4% rule requires, and you get $2.4 million. Wait, $8,000 a month is $96,000 a year. Multiply by 25. That is $2.4 million. Even that number stops most people cold. Here is the dangerous part. Nobody crosses that $8,000 monthly spending threshold on purpose. It happens in $200 increments, a slightly better apartment, a newer car payment, kids' activities, a meal delivery service because life got busy, a premium streaming bundle, a nicer gym. Each one individually is completely defensible. Combined, they quietly push you past a threshold that now requires an enormous retirement portfolio to sustain. And most people never do the math until it is too late to meaningfully adjust. Every $1,000 per month you spend requires an additional $300,000 in retirement savings. That is not a small number hiding inside a lifestyle upgrade. That is a $300,000 commitment disguised as a reasonable monthly expense. Keep monthly spending below $8,000 and retirement remains achievable. Exceed it without the assets to match, and you have signed up for a work obligation that may never end. The final rule is one you have almost certainly never heard taught anywhere. Before any major lifestyle upgrade, anything that permanently raises your monthly spending, save $8,000 first at the new spending level. Here is how it works. Say you want to move to a nicer apartment that costs $500 more per month. Before you sign anything, keep living where you are and transfer that extra $500 into a separate account every single month. If you can do that for 16 months and hit $8,000, you have proven two things. You can genuinely afford the upgrade without sacrificing your savings rate, and you have built a cushion specifically for that new expense. If you cannot consistently save that $500 while still hitting your investment floor, the upgrade will crack your financial system. You just got the answer without the consequences. This test stopped multiple bad decisions for me personally. Lifestyle upgrades that seemed affordable in the moment revealed themselves as threats to the actual plan once I tried to fund them first. Affordable and smart are not the same word. Affordable means you can make the payment. Smart means you can make the payment and still build wealth at the same rate. 5 rules. One number, 8,000 in cash, eliminates the poverty premium and gives you a foundation. 8,000 as your car ceiling protects decades of compounding. 8,000 per year invested is the floor between a retirement that works and one that does not. 8,000 per month in spending is the ceiling before retirement math becomes nearly impossible. And 8,000 saved at a new expense level is the stress test that separates a real upgrade from a financial trap. The wealthiest people I have met do not have complicated systems. They have simple systems they absolutely refuse to violate. This is the simplest and most powerful version of that system I have ever come across. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 rules landed hardest for you. I read every single one. And if you want to see exactly how I set up my own accounts to make all of these rules run automatically without thinking about them every month, that video is right here. I will see you in the next one.